Jersey City Historic Preservation Commission, 6:30 p.m. Sorry, my Oh. Okay, welcome everybody. Calling to order this meeting of the Jersey City Historic Preservation Commission. It is 6:30 p.m. on Monday, July 14th. Happy Bastille Day. Welcome.
Please be advised that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice of the time, date, and place of this regularly scheduled meeting of the Jersey City Historic Preservation Commission has been sent to the Bergen Record and El Especialito on Friday, July 11th, 2025. The same notice has been sent to the city clerk for posting on the bulletin board outside of the clerk's office in City Hall and on the Jersey City website. I have proofs of these notice here in evidence. If we can mark these as B1. Of course. Prior to roll call, we do have two new commissioners this evening. We are happy to welcome you to the commission. Commissioner Mandy Edgecombe is filling Kelly Lewis's unexpired term, and then Commissioner Natalie Kalbach is filling a vacant seat and is the second alternative. Mandy, please confirm that you have been sworn in by the city clerk.
I've been sworn in by the city clerk.
Great. And then Jonathan, if you could just swear in Natalie.
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the government established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all of the duties of an alternate member of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Jersey City, according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations, Commissioner.
Oh, by the way, this marks the first time in 23 years we've had 3 women on the commission, so well done.
Okay, and we will move on to roll call attendance. Commissioner Gucciardo is absent. Commissioner Sandkamp?
Here.
Commissioner Gunther? Commissioner Sakong is absent. Commissioner Blazak is absent. Commissioner Gordon?
Present.
Commissioner Edgecombe?
Present.
Commissioner Kalbach?
Present.
Vice Chair Garriga?
Here.
Chair Cronin?
Here.
Okay, we have staff notes that there are 7 commissioners present this evening. 5 affirmative votes are required for a certificate of appropriateness. Next up on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the June 16th, 2025 regular HPC meeting. Are there any questions or corrections to the minutes? Since there are no corrections or changes, staff recommends making a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Motion. Second.
Commissioner Sandkamp?
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther?
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon?
Aye.
Commissioner Edgecombe?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalbach? Vice Chair Garriga?
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin?
Aye.
There are 7 votes in favor, no against, no abstentions. The minutes from the June 16th,
Question real fast
2025.
before that. Commissioner Edgecombe, did you review the transcript
Sorry.
from the last meeting?
I was here.
You were here?
Yeah, she was in the audience.
Oh, perfect. Never mind, I guess. Sorry.
The minutes from the June 16th, 2025 HPC meeting are approved. For correspondence, all copies of correspondence and all application materials are linked on the agenda through their application numbers. For announcements, staff has two announcements. Item 8C under old business, case B-24-2696, 1123 Summit Avenue, has elected to carry to the August 18th, 2025 regular HPC meeting. And then item 11B under demolition review, case B-25-0166, 300 Central Ave, has elected to carry to the August 18th, 2025 regular HPC meeting. Now moving on to public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak regarding matters of historic preservation that are not listed on tonight's agenda, again, this is for matters that are not listed on tonight's agenda, please approach the public comment mic. Can we have a motion to open public comment?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony or comments you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state your full name and address for the
Paul Amatuzzo, Paulamatuzzo, 83 Sherman Place, Jersey City, New Jersey, 07307.
And Paul, I know you know the rules, but I'm just going to go over them again real quick. Before we begin your time, first, our court reporter will swear you in, which he just did, and then all members of the public will have 5 minutes to address the commission. Staff will indicate when the timer begins and ends, and I will also give you a warning at about like a minute left. Staff reminds any members of the public that any questions should be addressed to the HBC chair, who will relay them to the appropriate person following the completion of public comment. Paul?
Good evening, commissioners, both old and new. I did not think I'd have to be back here so soon, but here I am. I am here before all of you to let you know that, which most of you do know, that I've been working on the Sherman Place Historic District for close to 7 years now. And in December, we finally got the last of our paperwork together. And the only thing we're waiting for now to make it an official district would be the meetings with the stockholders, being homeowners, and it has to go before the city council for a vote. In the interim, the house next door to me was sold on April 16th. And by June 6th, it had full zoning and historic approval to demolish part of this historic home for a 37-foot, 3-story high addition and an ADU in the rear of the property. I truly feel that this was a huge, huge oversight, because this now sets precedent for anybody in the city to apply to do a partial demolition of their home to allow for an ADU to be built in their backyard. And I think this is something that should have come before the commission. It should not have been left for Michael's decision. In my 63 years living in Jersey City, I've never seen 6-week approval for such a project anywhere. It takes 6 weeks to get an approval for a sidewalk. And this is a huge injustice, because we've been trying to preserve the open space of Sherman Place for 7 years now. The state recognizes it. The city recognizes it. The city has helped us. Maggie, Tanya have helped us to get this designation. And here we are. It gets snuck in under the radar while no one's watching. And this is what we're stuck with. Now we have a 200-foot lot with 32 feet of yard left. And it's just ridiculous. It walls my property in from the west all the way to the backyard. When Tanya sent me the plans on, I don't know, it was June the 6th, was the day she approved them. I immediately hired an attorney and filed an appeal with the Zoning Board of Adjustment. That should have been a stay for permits being issued, but yet on July 2nd, the city issued full permits. On Monday, backhoes showed up. They blew a hole through the house. They have been digging foundations, and the neighbor on the other side's yard caved in today. So I want you all to know that this is what goes on while you all sit up here and give your good time. Okay? Something needs to be done. This decision should be rescinded. It should not have been left for one person to set precedent for the rest of the city, for the rest of the years that it exists.
1 minute.
And I cannot tell you how upset I am. I had to send my husband away. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment? Please approach the mic.
Raise your right hand, please, swear. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And if you could state and spell your full name and provide your address, please.
My first name's Hai, last name Sun. Address is 76 Sussex Street, Jersey City. Okay. I'm here to ask the commissioner to consider approve our renovation plan. We submitted the plan in January, and Dan came to visit us. We had a good visit, but the process has just been going on, and he already gave us the conditional approval. The only thing we needed to change was not to make any change to the doors, which we did, and we just like to get the project on the road. We have been waiting for 6 months. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to approach the mic for open public comment?
Okay. Staff sees no one approaching the mic. If we could have a motion to close public comment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I did not hear any specific questions. If you guys would like me to address anything, I'm more than happy to, or we can continue on.
The second person that came up to the mic,
Mhm.
can you address that in any way?
That is Dan's application. Obviously, he is not here tonight. I cannot speak to it. I have no review of it in the past, but I will, when he returns, remind him to check on it. If you have any other things that you would like me to relay, I'm more than happy to.
It just seems like sufficient time to be able to put it together. If there's
agree.
something that the applicant was not aware of that they would deemed incomplete, then that would be something we need to know.
Yeah, I will remind Dan and check on that and hopefully get an answer.
On the first speaker, can you give us some sort of overview of what has occurred in that situation? And because we do demo permits all the time, and when we have a half dozen of them tonight, is there a reason why this particular area, even and it's as it's being part of a district that's under consideration, and it should actually be a district already?
So, as far as the HPC goes, it is not zoned H. There's no overlay there. It is in the RH1 district, which has certain design standards within it. But, they're not required to submit an HPC application or have HPC review. And it is not a complete demolition of the property. They are removing one wall and moving it in. I believe believe it's the western wall, but I'm not off the top of my head. I'm not sure. The application was submitted for a zoning review application. It was reviewed by zoning staff as well as myself. Unfortunately, as from the standards that are written in the ordinance for the design standards for RH1, I did not see any way to deny the application or force them to change anything regarding the removal of that wall. It's a side wall. It's non-primary facade. They are moving it in slightly to gain access to allow them to put an ADU in the backyard. And so I reviewed it. It's only an internal review. We don't have a mechanism for it to come to the HPC. If it becomes a district, Sherman Place, then they will have to apply for a COA or a cone. But as it stands now, it's just an internal review that is at the discretion of the zoning officer or the zoning review agent that was referred to me.
Whenever we've had districts that were pending, we've generally given more. As a commission, we've generally been given more latitude than we've heard about them anyway. So because we didn't hear about it at all, it kind of, I think, hits people blindsided. Are you suggesting that there was nothing that you've considered historic in the area that's being removed, and that if it's moved off the bearing wall, you're talking about a bearing wall of a historic building?
Not that there's nothing historic to it, but the design standards are pretty strict within, and that's what I have review over. I don't have, I don't have the same level of review that we have for a cone or a COA. I have to follow the design standards that are within the ordinance, and the design standards primarily focus on the front facade of the building and not secondary sidewalls.
So is something coming back to us? Because are they just going to
So
decide how to rebuild the building?
So again, the HPC does not have any review over RH1 zone. As far as I understand, until the district is finalized and brought before planning board, brought before city council, we cannot force them to apply for a certificate of appropriateness or a certificate of no effect. As Paul mentioned, the application, if they submitted a appeal, then it would go to the zoning board for their review.
Chairman's prerogative here. I'd like to reopen public comment because I see someone would like to make an additional comment. Can we do that?
You want a sec? Did you make a motion?
Motion.
I'll second it.
I will just say it says members of the public get 5 minutes to speak.
Well, if the member of the public would like to speak for a few more minutes, and knowing that this is his chance to say his piece.
Up some of my time, so I just want to.
Okay.
I'd like to just respond
And then that
to the
Okay.
Design standards
fair enough.
that allegedly were followed. The design standards clearly state that the construction pattern of the block is supposed to be followed. The development pattern of the street is supposed to be followed. There's not an old house, an original house, on all of my block that has an addition on it. So where is the design standard here? The preservation of open space. Where is that design standard? That was ignored, along with probably a few others. And what's the point of having a design standard if the bulk standard is going to trump it every time? I'd like to know, because I wasted 15 years of my time, as far as I'm concerned, sitting where you're sitting because this is a big slap in my face after spending 15 years on this commission and 7 years trying to preserve the open space of Sherman Place, the design standard that says you have to follow the primary development pattern of the street. And here we are, a 37-foot, 3-story high addition with another 37-foot house behind that. Where's the design standard? What did you follow?
So
You didn't even know, you didn't even come.
Please address comments to the chair.
You didn't even come to do a site visit. Not Michael, not Tanya. He doesn't even know what wall they're knocking down, but he approved it. Plainly visible from the street. The house does a jag like this. It's not something that's hidden. Okay? Didn't even bother. There's a 125-year-old sycamore tree sitting in front of the house that was left out of the current situation, the current condition of the property. Okay? They were planning on cutting that down too. Because if you look at the plans that were submitted, where the tree is, they're moving the driveway over and think they're putting the tree next to my driveway. So nothing they've done has been followed by the book. And this is where site visits come in real important, my commissioners. If you don't even know what you're talking about, what wall is being torn down, or what the view is from the front of the house, you shouldn't have that job. Site visits are important because it affects my life and every resident of Jersey City's life gets affected when somebody doesn't do a site visit because you don't even know what you're talking about. Thank you for my additional time.
Thank you. So we'll motion to close.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's move right along here to some old business. Our first case is a demolition review at 1051 Garfield Avenue, and that's B-25-0007, carried from the June 16th, 2025 regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We just are going to set up a computer quickly. We have a couple of exhibits that we're going to show the board.
Fair enough. Okay.
Could you put your appearance on the record now?
Oh, why would I do that? Robert Vertibello from the law firm of Connell Foley on behalf of the applicant, Public Service Electric and Gas Company, otherwise known as PSE&G. And this is a carryover from May as well. So we marked an exhibit. I don't know if you still have that of record. That should be A1, but we'll go into that. This will be the Yes.
Let's see if it pops up. Looks like it's there. Should be showing up on everything.
All right, I'll do my little intro. Okay, so we're ready to go. Again, Robert Vertibello from Connell Foley. We were here back on May 19th. This is regarding...
One thing, you have some documents showing at the bottom here.
oh,
Close those out.
yeah. As long as it's nothing top secret, I'm
Happens
sure
to
we're
the
okay.
best of us.
This is regarding 1051 Garfield Avenue. This is a currently existing electrical substation. PSE&G has submitted plans to the planning board to upgrade and modify the existing station, and that includes the demolition of the existing substation building. As a quick recap, without going into all the previous testimony, PSE&G did make numerous attempts to try to find other properties to relocate the substation. This property is in the vicinity of Berry Lane Park and the greater Morris Canal area. So there, as I'm sure everyone knows, there's been a lot of redevelopment in that area. There aren't very many, if any, untaken lots. Many of the lots that are vacant currently are slated for development projects. And so at the end of the day, the substation has to stay where it is. In order for the substation to be upgraded, the existing building, and we submitted as Exhibit A1 on May 19th, a facility assessment report, which we acknowledged was not geared specifically towards historic preservation. However, we have here this evening Caleb Peterson, who is the project engineer who drafted the report. We had, after the May 19th hearing, had Caleb and his team take a deeper look as to whether or not reutilization of the existing building, what the feasibility of that would be. There are a number of challenges that you'll hear tonight with doing that. And as a result, we again ask that the commission not recommend the denial of the demolition permit, but to allow the PSE&G project to go forward. While we understand the sensitivity of historic preservation, in this particular situation, again, just restricted to the facts of this case, we respectfully submit that the ability of PSE&G to maintain its mandate of providing reliable, safe, and efficient electric service surpasses the need for historic preservation. With that aside, I'll turn it over to Caleb, who can further explain some of the challenges that we have with this site.
Robert, just before you do that, I do just want to note we had a few commissioners that were not here on that May 19th meeting. Commissioners Garriga, Edgecombe, and Kalbach. Can you affirm that you have read the transcript for that meeting? And Robert, if you feel comfortable with them voting, if they've
Yes.
read or watched the video. Commissioner Kalbach?
Yes, I did.
Commissioner Garriga?
I've seen the video and the transcripts.
Thank you. And then Commissioner Edgecombe?
I have not.
Okay. Would you like her to recuse herself? I think that's...
Yeah, that's the
Yes.
appropriate procedure.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you feel comfortable recusing yourself, and then we can move on.
I'll recuse myself.
Okay. So if you could just... You can say?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're just not going to participate in the discussion or the vote.
Sounds good. Continue.
Okay. All right, I'll turn it over. And before you start, we'll just read it.
Yep, sounds good.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do swear.
And state spell your full name, please.
My name is Caleb Peterson, CalebPeterson.
Before you start, we, of the slides, we also have paper copies that we can mark, and if it's easier to look at paper versus the digital, just let us know. And if you could, Mr. Peterson, state your educational experience and background for the record.
Yes, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Nebraska. I have been working in the transmission and distribution space for 12 years with Burns McDonnell, focusing on PSE&G projects for the past 9 years.
And you are currently licensed in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am licensed in 4 states, including New Jersey, and I've been licensed in New Jersey since 2021.
And you're familiar with the report, the facilities report that was submitted on May 19th?
Yes, I am.
Staff recommends the chair accept his qualifications as an expert in the field of engineering.
Accepted.
Mr. Peterson, if you could explain.
Sure. So just to give a little bit of prelim background, what we're looking at is Google Earth view of the substation, the existing building shown here. You can see that the two-tone differences being the existing building is the more hatched-looking version, and there was an extension to the building that was had in 1916. And so with the current layout of the building, there are several feasibility concerns that we have in order to make this repurposing feasible. First off, there being concerns for having to take all the necessary circuits out of the building and to the surrounding areas. The main feasible location that there would be to take these circuits out would be in this yellow highlighted area, which this would be conflicting with the existing building foundation. In order to make something like this happen, they would have to do what's called a jack and bore method, which would pose risks to undermining the existing building foundation. You need very large and extensive spaces to achieve this type of construction installation. We've estimated it being around a 30-foot by 30-foot by 15-foot deep hole that would be needed in order to make sure that they're able to drill and install these underground duct banks that have conduits that carry these circuits. And so, as mentioned, with the age of the building and the location of where these need to go, there would be significant concerns with undermining the foundation. The other main concern that is present is in order to fit all the equipment, the wall that is currently separating that extension that I mentioned from the existing building or the original building to the 1916 extension, portions of that would need to be demolished, further limiting the structural viability of the building, and would need some extensive reinstallations and additional steel, concrete that would make it be very challenging. Additionally, the existing building height is not sufficient for the equipment. Based off of the height of the equipment, which is guided by several codes and standards, in addition to the necessary requirements for access and maintenance of the equipment, requires there to be a bridge crane installed so that way the materials can be first installed, but then also be accessed and maintained if there was a failure of a piece of equipment to remove it and replace it in kind. There is a certain height requirement that is needed, approximately 5 feet above the equipment. And based off of that location, it would put the bridge crane to be in conflict with the existing girders and overall structure for the roof. So in order to install this, it would likely require that the roof be demolished and rebuilt, which would lead to more extensive reconstructions for the building, for the walls, and other parts of the building itself. Other main notes I have summarized here on the left side with these six. Like I said, the superstructure would likely need to be a new superstructure would likely need to be installed to support the bridge crane, all of the capable loads for the equipment. I believe in the report it was summarized that the building is not currently up to code, and so in order to bring up the building to code, there would be significant installation for steel along the walls, the floors, additional concrete and rebar. There's also concerns within the cable vault, which is where we would need to be putting equipment, and there not being proper room to maintain and have proper access around the equipment. And in addition, as mentioned, to reinforce the walls, the floors, it would further take away from the allowable space and allowable room and make it very difficult and challenging to repurpose this building. There was the wall I mentioned that would need to be removed. This would require significant upsize of the wall beams and the floor beams to support the control room where equipment would be placed above it as well. Additionally, the switchgear, the 13 kV switchgear that is needed to be installed, which is shown in this long row. This is what's called a breaker and a half switchgear configuration, and usually the breakers would not be in as long of a row as shown here, and this would create very complicated designs and challenges for the electrical wiring and connections in order to make this feasible. Here's another view showing those circuits and duct banks that I mentioned that would be coming out of from the existing building that would be underneath portions of the existing foundation, and the concerns we have. There's also very limited or the access and egress is not currently up to code within this building, and so if we were having to put on this equipment and bring it up to code for egress, there's significant concerns of not being able to make that feasible with the amount and size of equipment that is required. Additionally, if we were to keep the building as is, there's also significant concerns outside of the substation. Mainly, the biggest one is that the only drive path and access to get into the substation would have to be a single location as shown here, which means that all vehicles coming into the substation for access and maintenance would have to drive in and back out directly. And since they'd be backing out directly onto a busy street like Garfield Avenue, there would be concerns for safety, for any worker that is coming into the station. Yeah, I think that kind of summarizes some of the major bullet points of issues and concerns that we have in order to repurpose the building, and that goes with why we are requesting a demolition permit so we can build a new building in kind that will properly house all the required equipment that is needed for the substation upgrade.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Peterson?
So from what you said, it sounded to me mostly like if you were to remove the roof and there's a bearing wall in the center between the original building and the second building that was constructed, if you were able to remove both of those items, you'd be able to accommodate everything.
We would still need to do further analysis to verify that the equipment would work within the allotted space, because as mentioned, the building is not up to code, so to install the necessary beams and girders along the walls, the floors, it would take away from the necessary space for the equipment. We have not had a chance to do that full analysis because we have not done a structural detailed analysis to know how big these members would be, but there would be significant concerns with needing to do that. Additionally, I forgot to mention that with the new equipment that's being installed, there would be requirements for much more HVAC systems in order to properly maintain the temperatures of the building. And so there would already be a lot of coring and drilling through the walls that I think would lead to most, if not all, of the building having to be rebuilt in some manner.
The building is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically a lot line building on three sides at least, right? It covers almost every inch of your lot on three sides?
That is correct.
So the only way that you can get really more space is if you made walls that didn't exist or were thinner or what? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Or you build up taller, right? On three sides.
That is part of the site plan application that's been submitted, is for a taller structure. The only way, I'm not the engineer, but the only way to accommodate it is to go vertical.
That is correct.
And so what are you talking about? It seemed like you said that you only needed like 5 more feet, right?
Well, that's in the configuration that we're showing. If we're trying to make the existing building work, the way that we would like to do this and how we usually like to put these substations is we would have what we call the GIS equipment on the first floor, and then the controls and relays on the floor above it. So that way we are trying to limit the overall footprint of the building as best as possible. So the proposed building is not going to be just 5 feet taller than this current building. It's currently around, I want to say, 60 feet to account for the GIS floor and then the floor that will house the main relays and controls equipment.
Have you investigated a version of this that doesn't expand vertically up, but expands vertically down?
We have not.
I will caution that there is a high water table from what we've seen on some reports. So to go down in that area, we're not up on the Palisade. We're on Garfield Avenue, and going down, I'm not sure if that's feasible.
You're not sure, or it's not?
I can maybe speak a little bit more to that. He is correct that there is a high water table. To go down deeper, there would be significant concerns about the safety and the reliability of the equipment. As we all know, water and electricity don't mix very well. And so the typical practice and standard is to keep the buildings completely above the water table as best as possible. So if we're going down deeper, it would be not advised and feasible, but a design that just opens up a lot of risks and concerns of there being a issue or failure in the future.
There's a building about 2 blocks from you. It used to be called, it was the the Bergen Library, and it's on the top of it. It was added on to, but the original structure is there, and they just built above it. And I think that would be appropriate as opposed to demoing the entire building. Either way, if you're going to demo the entire building, you have to take everything out of it, don't you? You have to shut this place down and.
That is correct. And as a part of the overall design process, we would be installing a temporary contingency substation, that would allow us to transition the circuits over for a period to allow us to demolish the substation and rebuild it in kind.
That's part of our site plan application that's pending.
Right, but generally, you're in the same footprint as 60-some feet high, correct?
The building is, I can't say for certain. I don't know if it's a complete one-to-one, if they are that way.
We have our project manager, Frank DiGiacomo, who's available to answer that question. And also, for the record, the building that you're speaking about was converted to residential, not to a utility substation.
That's right.
So there are different, as Mr. Peterson has explained, there are different standards for that. So to say that we can just slap something on top is not, it's not entirely accurate. But I'll let the experts talk about that. If you could just state your name on the record.
Yeah, Frank DiGiacomo.
Right hand be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state the spelling for me?
Frank, and then DiGiacomo, D-I-G-I-A-C-O-M-O. I live in Parsippany, New Jersey. Okay,
And Mr. DiGiacomo, if you could just state your general criteria, your educational background and experience.
Yeah, I've got a Bachelor of Civil Engineering from the University of Dayton. I've got 52 years of experience in refineries, power plants, pharmaceuticals, nuclear, and whatnot. And I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey also. Okay.
Staff recommends the chair accept his qualifications as an expert in
Accepted.
engineering.
What you're seeing right now is a picture trying to utilize the building space that exists now. All right, that prevents us from bringing a road from Harmon Street down the back of the existing lot. All right, and in order to do that, we shorten up the length of the building, the new one that we're building. All right, and it's not as wide. So the footprint of the new building is smaller than what you're looking at here, all right? And that gives us access from Harmon around the back of the plant and with a street that goes, then a road that goes through the plant out to Garfield Ave. And then all the other equipment that you saw, there's 3 transformers, large transformers really, all right? SLMP transformers, there's 4 kV switchgear that has to be installed. And with all of the requirements for safety and reliability in all of our plants, that's why we have to go up rather than staying in the same footprint of the building that's there right now. Okay. Okay. And the other thing, if I might, when you were talking about going down further into the ground, all right, yes, there's the water problem and everything, but we'd have to take out the concrete foundations that exist there, that some of them, from the drawings I've seen, are 5, 6, or 7 feet thick, all right? And with that, that's going to bring all of we can't save any of the building if that was a possibility right now. But in order to go down further to do the new building, everything comes out. You can't save anything then because you have no strength anymore.
And that option was thoroughly
No,
researched and studied,
No, we
and you've exhausted all the options to try that route?
At this point in time, no, we haven't looked at digging down, all right, only because of the problems that you do get into by going further down in that area. Okay. All right. So, any questions?
Any additional questions? No? Robert, did you have any other testimony?
No, these are the only witnesses that we're presenting. Again, we've marked this presentation as I believe A2, so we'll submit a copy. We have the paper copies as well that will be part of the record. But again, the issue here is the functional obsolescence of the building. We understand the desire for historic preservation, but given what needs to be accomplished here and what PSE&G's primary mandate is, we believe that it's appropriate to demolish this station and replace it and upgrade it with a new station that meets current codes and standards, which will be beneficial to the public, even more, and we submit even more so than the historic preservation aspect. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions and testimony is concluded, we'll move on to public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the commission regarding this application, please approach the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public present and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to some staff comments. If the commission would like, I could pull up the 1938 tax card photo and everything.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Just give me a moment and I will pull that up. Okay, so we have the tax card up. Let me scroll down just to give you an idea. Okay, so we have the tax card. Then we also have some photos when they load. And then I will also open up my staff report or our demo memo. Okay, while those load. So as you can see on the 1938 tax card, we have a pretty good photo. This one was actually taken a little bit later in 1942, but still pretty close to that 1938 date. So for this application, the property was identified in the master plan, the historic preservation element. It was identified in both the 1985 Phase 1 and Phase 2 surveys. In the Phase 2 survey, they note that, and I quote, "Few such structures have survived in the city from the early decades of this century," talking about the 20th century, "and even fewer have survived in such good workable condition." Speaking about the significance of the building, it was built circa 1907. As the applicant discussed, there were multiple additions throughout the years. None of these are really non-compatible additions. All of them are from the period of significance. Our staff believes they're all from the period of significance of the property. So this is really associated with this criteria of significance, A and C. A is associated with broad patterns of history, speaking on the electrification of Jersey City, and C on the architectural. It embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, and method of construction, most essentially if no other or very few buildings of such structures with the same association have survived. And then speaking towards the integrity of the building, this building, staff believes, has integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. It really has all seven. As you can see from the photos submitted by the applicant, going back to the 1938. Really, on the exterior, nothing has been substantially altered since that 1942 photo. So the location and the setting are very much intact. Materials and workmanship as well. I think some of the windows have been filled in or replaced with these louvers, but other than that, really has maintained quite a bit of integrity, as well as feeling of an association. It's still being used as a substation to this day. That's relatively rare as far as historic properties within Jersey City and really, kind of the country. Most often when we see these types of buildings, they have abandoned their primary use. And all of that is kind of laid out through this staff report. If the commission has any questions for staff, I'd be happy to answer them. But again, staff's recommendation is a motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
And just be sure you're explaining the reasons for doing so.
Sure. As stated by staff, all 7 of the criteria for consideration appear to be satisfied. There's been extensive discussion. The applicant has put forth the argument that the continued functioning of the building is foremost and takes precedent over historic considerations. But I believe our mandate on the HPC is to consider these 7 factors, and having done so, I'm satisfied that it retains historic significance and should not be demolished.
I mean, I will agree with everything that staff has said and that Robert has said, that the building possesses all these levels of integrity, and it's very intact, and it's part of a sort of it's a part of an architectural typology that is present in this part of Jersey City. I'm thinking of the other shed roof structures on Berry Lane, and one that has recently been converted. I think it's Monitor Street, where it's been cleverly adapted into a larger vertical development. And I think that potential exists on this site as well.
Okay, so we have a motion. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Sandkamp?
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther?
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalbach? Aye. Vice Chair Griga?
Aye.
And Chair Cronin?
Aye.
So we have 6 in favor, 0 nays, 0 abstentions, with 1 commissioner recused. The motion to recommend denial to the zoning officer is approved. I'm going to move back to my seat now.
And while you're doing that, we'll call our next case. And this is case H-25-0060. The applicant is Jared Pizzillo, Esquire, applicant on behalf of Warren at Bay LLC owners, 130 Bay Street, in the Powerhouse Arts District redevelopment plan / local landmark. They are here for a certificate of appropriateness for alterations to the retail storefront, including but not limited to painting the non-historic metal to curtain wall blue, installation of red gooseneck lighting, and installation of a non-illuminated sign at 130 Bay Street, aka the A&P Warehouse Auxiliary Building and Bakery Complex, an altered early 20th century commercial building complex with classical elements constructed 1914/1915, this is carried at the request of the applicant from the June 16th meeting of the HPC. Welcome back.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Gerard Pizzillo. I'm an attorney with Genova Burns, appearing this evening on behalf of the applicant, Daily Provisions, who is appearing with the consent of the owner, Warren Epé LLC. We did appear before you in June, your last meeting. We did provide a bulk, if not a majority, of the testimony of the proposal that we're seeking a certificate of appropriateness for. The board did have some questions and some concerns with regards to what we presented at that time. So we did ask to carry, as the chairman indicated. Since that time, we did come up with a revised presentation. We did upload it to the portal. But briefly, our architect, Alberto Pena, is here to testify to that. But just briefly, the provision or the proposal before you now eliminates the painting of the piers, which we did believe was a concern of the commission the last time round. The presentation also was updated to include some context of the existing storefront in connection with the existing historic building that was recently adapted and, for a commercial retail and office building. The only other difference that you'll see, again, is just the blue mullions, the removal of the painting. Blue mullions, M-U-L-L-I-O-N-S. The blue mullions that we're seeking on the storefront, and then just the context. So all that said, we'll turn it over to Alberto, who also has the material board, so you could see the actual color of what's proposed here.
Okay.
Just a note, we did, again, have a few commissioners that were not here for the last meeting. So, again, if you could just confirm on the record that you have watched the recording or read the transcript. Commissioner Edgecombe?
I was in the audience last meeting and I saw their presentation.
Okay. So you're good. And then Commissioner Kabat?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Gerard, is that okay if they... I don't think it's on.
I tried to turn. Okay.
Oh.
Acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And staff will note that Mr. Pena, as was discussed last time, has previously been qualified as an expert in the field of architecture. So feel free to begin.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you again.
Could you spell your name for the record?
Sure. Alberto Pena, A-L-B-E-R-T-O, P-E-N-N-A. All right. So since, as Gerard kind of gave the brief overview, since last month when we presented, we sort of scaled back. I do have, I don't know if you want to, actually, if I could hand this to you now and go around. Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. So essentially, as Gerard mentioned, we, in coordination with Daily Provisions, we removed the idea of painting the piers and even just the returns, which is one of the options we showed you. So I'm just going to go to the next slide. As some of the commission requested, we then presented the context in which Daily Provisions sits. And you can see from the three photos to the left, and of course the dotted box is Daily Provisions. To the left are the one bay of the same building, and of course the adjacent building. And then the middle, the second photo is of course sort of a straight shot of Daily Provisions, again in the context of the rest of the building to the left and right. And then the bottom photo, just again a perspective view looking towards Warren from across the street from the site. And I know that was a concern or a request, so we provided that for some of you, or all of you. I'm just going to go right to the rendered photos. I think they speak more volume. So this is currently what is the existing, which is the piers in their original color that was approved by the base building, or by you for the base building, I should say. Existing black mullions. And so in the next option, which I'll slide over, what we're requesting in this option A is at the minimum the non-illuminated sign, which is a staple for Daily Provisions, as well as the gooseneck lighting, which will light the one non-illuminated sign. And I do want to mention in the elevations, which I'll show in a few minutes, there is something that's important to them is a dog park and a sign for the dog park, which is at the second bay. You don't see it in this view, but I will show you in the elevation right here. So if you could see in the second bay of daily provisions, there's notes speaking to that dog park. So at the minimum, option A is what they're requesting. So which is, just a quick recap, leaving the existing mullions black, putting up the non-illuminated sign, and the goosenecks will light that up along with the dog park, which I just discussed. Option B is a request to now, the difference from option A is to have the mullions be that DP blue, as well as have their brass staple entry door hardware. So that's the difference between option A and option B in this revised proposal. And again, I'll show you the flat elevation. So that's what you would see in context of the rest of the building. And going forward, you have the physical swatch. There he goes, back at us. So that's the DP blue is what it's called. The signage detail, if you will. And then in context, top right is really a simple diagrammatic section of what we're requesting, which is both in option A and option B, which is that non-illuminated sign with the red goosenecks. And in basics, that's pretty much, I think, caps the revised proposal at this time.
Chairman, that'll conclude our presentation. Happy to answer any questions the commissioners may have.
Okay. No questions? Thank you. Shall we move on to staff comments?
Why don't we do public comment? If there are any members of the public that would like to speak regarding this application, feel free to walk up to the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public wishing to speak. Staff recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can move on to staff comments. So just a little bit of background on this application. The HPC approved a rehabilitation of this building under a certificate of appropriateness in October of 2019. That was H19-398. And then there were a few subsequent amendments, H19-595 and H22-239. Sorry. So the first one is H19-398. The second one is H19-595. And then the third one is H22-239. And those were the site plan of the building. And then an interior fit out of for the tenant space was approved under a certificate of no effect on June 4th, 2024. That was H-24-0130. In reviewing the application, staff believes that the painting of this non-historic modern metal storefront system and the installation of the signage is really a relatively minimal application and will not distract from the historic resource. The work is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for restoration and new construction, as well as with the historic design standards and the rules and regulations. The installation of the signage is consistent with similar signage on similar historic industrial buildings. And HPC staff does not anticipate an adverse impact on either the historic resource or the surrounding resources as a result of the proposed work. Staff does recommend approval of a certificate of appropriateness with a few conditions. One, all the conditions approved under those previous numbers, H19-398, H19-595, H22-239, and H-24-0130 remain in effect for the entirety of this approval. And then the rest of them are pretty much our standard conditions. There are two that are sometimes included. All proposed light fixtures shall be downcast in nature, and all proposed signage shall comply with all zoning regulations and ordinances. And then the rest of them are just our standard conditions.
All those conditions are acceptable to the applicant. Thank you.
So the signage and the lighting, those can be removed without, at some future date, without any significant damage to the historic fabric?
They can, yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Sandcamp,
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther,
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon,
Aye.
Commissioner Edgecombe,
Aye.
Commissioner Kalbach,
Aye.
Vice Chair Garriga,
Aye.
and Chair Cronin.
Aye.
So we have 7 votes in favor, no against, no abstentions. The certificate of appropriateness with conditions is approved.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. Have
Thank
a
you
nice
very
day.
much.
Thank you kindly.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
You too.
Okay, moving right along. Was it C?
C. Oh, wait, we skipped C.
We're going to go to D. C is being carried.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem.
It's been a long meeting already. Moving right along to our next demolition, which is 250 Newark Avenue. And this is case B-25-0141. This was carried at the request of the applicant from the June 16th, 2025 regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission.
If the chair doesn't mind, first, Tom Lean from Connell Foley here on behalf of the owner. If the chair doesn't mind, both of the next items on your agenda, D and E, both owned by the same applicant, both have the same issues. If you wouldn't mind if I presented both of them at the same time?
Yeah, sure.
Great. I'm just going to let Mr. Davino set up here.
And just for the record, the other property is 240 Newark Avenue, and that is case B-25-0386.
Thank you. So I'll just start by saying that we are here in front of the board, obviously, on a demolition review based off of 2 memorandums that were issued by the historic officer. They are both dated May 15th, 2025. One obviously relates to 240 Newark Avenue. The other relates to 250 Newark Avenue. We are here not only to contend that the demolition permit should not be recommended to the zoning officer for denial, but we're also here to contend that there is a jurisdictional problem with these applications being before the board this evening. Before the board this evening or at all. I'm sure many on the board are aware that there was a prior process for review of demolition permits that went solely through the historic officer. It was basically a unilateral decision of the historic officer to deny or grant a demolition permit. And that process was challenged, and it was vitiated and found to violate the MLUL in the Berardo versus Jersey City case. In response to that, the city adopted Ordinance 25006, which lays out the process for referrals of demolition permits from the historic officer to the historic board. And that was really an attempt to codify Section 111 of the MLUL.
Counselor,
Yes.
I will just say this is not the appropriate forum to challenge the validity of the ordinance.
I'm not challenging the validity of the ordinance. I'm just laying the basis here for the board's understanding of how our process works and why these applications are before them this evening. I understand this is not a court of law. I'm not asking anybody here to say that the ordinance is or is not a valid ordinance. I'm just simply explaining how these applications ended up in front of the board this evening, and based off of our reading of the ordinance, why we believe that not only should the application be denied, but actually shouldn't be here at all. Is that acceptable?
That's what you're going to say. So
That's
Find out soon enough.
I just think that I will say the commission is bound to follow what the ordinance says at this point.
And I understand that, and I promise I will get there. Let me just lay the basis for it, okay? Section 111 of the MLUL states that the governing body shall by ordinance provide for referrals of applications for issuance of permits pertaining to historic sites or property in historic districts. And that's really the issue here, is that this property is neither a historic site nor is it in a historic district. And I know it's not because in Section 65.1 of our ordinance, of the MLUL, it states that all properties shall be within either a historic zone, or excuse me, all historic sites shall either be within a historic zone or within our master plan. This is neither in a historic district, nor is it identified in our master plan. There's also another process here to name historic sites, which can be done by way of a decision of the governing body. For example, Phase 1, Phase 2, both adopted by ordinance of the governing body. This property is not in either Phase 1 or Phase 2. So the issue before the board this evening is we have a process whereby owners are not put on notice that their property might be determined to be a historic site through a third process, mainly referral, when it's not on any of these lists, to this board, and this board determines essentially it's historic and that a demo permit should be denied. So I'm just putting that in front of the board. There is a process here. It was not followed. There was 3 attempts at the apple here. You as a board could have referred it to the planning board to put into the master plan. It could have been found by the governing body in Phase 1 or Phase 2. It was not. So with that said, I will turn it over to Mr. Davino, and he will go over whether the process, if we actually accept that the process that's in the ordinance is permitted, and whether that was followed or not, which we will contend it was not.
But before we get into that, just before we get off the jurisdiction issue, I don't want to jump ahead to staff comment, but if you could just address or state what is the basis for our review of these 2 applications specifically before we get off the issue entirely.
I'll try and answer that one. So right now, the way the ordinance is written is that any applicant for a demolition permit must first apply to the Division of Planning for a prior approval by the zoning officer in order for a demolition permit or a construction permit to be issued. If the Historic Preservation Officer recommends that the building should not be demolished, if they recommend that the property, should not be demolished, then they issue that recommendation to the commission. The commission reviews it, and based on the factors in the ordinance, will either agree with the Historic Preservation Officer or disagree, but in any event will issue a recommendation to the zoning officer, who will then make the decision regarding prior approval. So that's where we're at right now. These properties applied for a demolition permit, and the first step was review by the planning officer and the Historic Preservation Officer, who then issued a recommendation to this body that said that should not be demolished for the reasons set forth in the recommendation.
So this could apply to all applications for demolition of a property?
This does apply for all applications of demolition of property.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state your name for the record.
Dennis Michael Davino. I think it might be best if I work from here.
You have testified in front of this board before?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you are a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
And it is current today?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Staff recommends that the chair accept Mr.
Accepted.
Davino's qualifications.
Now you may.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for hearing our presentation tonight. As was mentioned, this property is, we requested a demolition permit for 240 Newark and 250 Newark. It's actually 2 buildings, look very much similar. They're connected to each other. The one you see up on the screen right now is 250. And I'll go over to the next slide. And this one is 240 Newark. So on the left side, you'll see the 1938 tax card. And we took a similar photo so the board can kind of do a comparison while we go through the presentation for both buildings. I'd like to start by kind of just, again, going through the memorandum.
If it's for me, I'm not here.
Good. Okay. Thank you. No problem. We did, again, we made an application for demo. On May 15th, we received a memorandum from HPO consultants and staff. I'm assuming the board has that, so I can read through it. It's a two-page for 240 and 2 pages for 250 Newark. The main part of the memo, if you will, is really the second paragraph, where in our opinion, and the reason why we wrote our response letter is there's the only section in this paragraph that really has anything to do with saving the building really is its historic integrity. If you go through the second paragraph, you see, I'll read a couple of lines. So the photograph attached as a tax card of 1938 shows the mixed-use building to be consistent in form, massing, and fenestration. I'm reading from the second paragraph, about the third sentence down, for 240 Newark. And I'd like to stop right there and make a comment about that statement in and itself. To say it's consistent with the form is saying it's consistent with all the elements that the original building had on it at the time it was the 1938 tax card. And you can see in that photograph that there are very few elements that still exist. And matter of fact, when you go through the memo itself kind of contradicts itself by saying that the cornice has changed, the siding has been altered, the commercial strip along the bottom has been completely changed, and yet it makes a statement that says that it's consistent in form, massing, and fenestration. And again, I'll go through this in a little bit. So the present-day alteration of the first story, which are typical changes of commercial storefronts of the time. Currently, the property exterior material comprise replacement, including vinyl, aluminum siding. As you can see, all what was there before on 250 and 240, it used to be horizontal siding, horizontal clapboard, or horizontal siding, cedar, most likely. And you can compare that photograph, it's pretty evident of all the compromises that were made in this building over the years. The storefronts had extended bays with a cornice roof. You can see the elaborate cornice and frieze work at the very top of the building, along with the fenestrations of all the windows were substantially reduced in size when they were replaced. And I say the same thing, it goes to 250. There's actually a whole section of windows here that have been removed. And the windows, you can see there's substantial reduction in size of these windows as well. So the memo seems to kind of not really tell the true story of what has happened over the course of the years in this building. On 250, it makes reference to that the storefront has been changed to a modern first-story exterior. I'm going to let the board kind of take a look at some of these other more recent photos of the building. So this is considered a modern storefront. This is 240. You can see the condition of it and what they actually consider to be a replacement. In our world, or in our architectural career and world, we said when you replace something, you replace it with something that's similar, same size, same shape. When you're going to alter something, that you're going to change. You're not only going to change, you take an element out of a building, but you're going to alter it substantially, and that's what this building really has amounted to. It's a series of alterations, not a series of replacements, which the memo continues to allude to, but a series of alterations, which is evident from this slide. Continuing on this slide, These are the window alterations and the cornice alterations. There's no cornice at all. When you can see that the 1938 tax card, the elaborate cornice work is no longer exists. This is on the Second Street side. There was most likely we don't have evidence. We don't have tax cards from 1938 on the Second Street side, but there is most likely this was also a storefront extension, which has now completely been blocked up. This is also on Second Street. This is also on the Second Street side. You can see some remnants. And now this is moving on to the existing facade of 250. You can see the condition of the facade, how it's starting actually to bow out, the smaller cornice windows, the minimal cornice now. The memo continues when it identifies cornice, but it's really the only component, the only element left on the cornice all around the building in some cases are the brackets. The frieze board is completely gone. All the dental moldings are gone. And this is kind of gives you a condition of the facade material. And then here is a modern storefront. This has removed the existing storefront removed completely, and essentially they're used. And it's not. Don't believe it's the current owner that did this work. I don't know who did. Use basically residential materials to do the alterations to this building. I mean, here's another example of residential materials where they put. I tried to identify an entry door where they just simply put a old mansard style roof with asphalt shingles. And now this band, I remember the 1938 tax card. This was almost a marquee style bottom cornice. Okay. So I just wanted the board to get a feel for what the building has come into and turned into. So these are maybe some remnants of a former kind of commercial roof line along that first level. So that's kind of the board gets a feel for how this building has lived its life. I'm gonna like to go through. We did a 4 or 5 page letter response to the memo, and I'd like to go through a couple of items if I may. Again, getting back to what the memo with the consultant identified on reasons why the building shouldn't be taken down, it really only essentially came down to integrity. And there were only 2 items of 7 members of 7 criteria items on integrity that they even brought up. And again, I'm assuming the board has this and had a chance to read it. So the 7 items, Mr. Lean identified the fact that we are not in a historic zone, so there's 7 items, 7 criteria items for non-historic district demolition criteria. The one being age. Yes, the building is over 50 years old. It's probably over 100 years old, but again, it's made of it's a wood construction, and when a complete wood construction buildings really aren't designed to last for 100 or 200 years. We've been in the building. You can see the condition of the facade. You can see the alterations of the facade. On the inside of the building, there are substantial deflections in floors. And this building it's not that it's been neglected, because this building is occupied. It has commercial occupants as well as residential occupants. And so the owners are trying to keep it up the best they could, but as you could see through the years and the condition, it's making it very difficult to keep the building operational. So, again, aged, the memorandum itself states that there are no significant historic association with important people or events. The architectural style of the properties are unexceptional, with like-kind buildings found throughout the city. As I mentioned, it's a wood frame structure. Item number 2, whether or not the building is identified in the master plan. Well, as Mr. Leon indicated, the building is not identified in the master plan. Let's just see. So, in table 3 of the master plan, the authors of the master plan identified over 10,000 properties in Appendix A, and we're not in it. 240 and 250. I highlighted buildings that are around it. The neighbor next to us, they are in it. 240 and 250 is not in the table.
Not to interrupt, sorry. If we could just mark this in the previous presentation. I don't know if you have any other presentation pieces that you're pulling up.
I have a flash drive to give you of everything I'm presenting.
Okay.
So you can put it in evidence when we're all done.
Yeah, we'll just mark it all as A1.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
So materials, we identified that the materials have been compromised, workmanship has been compromised, association, it says the HPO consultant memo even states that there are no significant historic association. And then we go to feeling, and I think it's important for the board to take a So you identify a feeling of a historic building or historic elements. It's really when you visit the site or you walk by the site or you're inside the building, you want to be able to feel the life of it. You want to be able to feel the history of it. So in and around, we took photos in and around the neighborhood of buildings that do give you that feeling. This one is adjacent to us. I think this is 230 Newark Ave. This one is across the street from across the 2nd Street. These are all buildings within the neighborhood, within the immediate neighborhood. Also across the street on 2nd Street. These all give you the feeling of the history of the building. And we get to our building, and I honestly don't believe you can honestly say that you feel where the era and the historic significance of this structure. So, in closing, I just wanted to identify. In the memo itself, and compared to the tax card of 1938, rather, all the fenestrations, all the windows, the sidings were altered. The form of the building was altered. The commercial facade was completely removed and altered, and the cornice was altered. So you have 4 major components. Probably all of the major components of the facade of a building have completely been altered. So my last statement is what was lost in the years of modification is the true feeling and harmony of the structure. The historic and architectural proportions and elements that once identified the true meaning of the building no longer exist.
Thank you, Mr. Davino. I'll just wrap up here. One thing that we did not mention is in that both memos, part part of the reasoning for this referral is that these properties are listed as appearing in the Village Historic District and the Newark Avenue Historic District. Neither of those are historic districts. They are eligible historic districts, but they're not historic districts. So again, we have a real problem here in process. It comes down to a due process issue and a fundamental right issue. Somebody could be living in a property for 30, 40 years, want to sell it to somebody who wants to demolish it and tear it down, and they find out through this process and this process alone, even if they went to the phase 1 and the phase 2, even if they went to the master plan, they would have no way of knowing that their property was historic and not eligible for demolition unless they go through this process. And again, it's important because the process that's outlined in Section 111 of the MLUL is not like most of the applications where you guys hear it, where you're making a recommendation to another board. In this process, the determination you make here, the zoning officer has no choice. It says in Section 111 that the zoning officer shall deny it. So again, based on what you heard from Mr. Domino and what you've heard from me, we hope you deny this recommendation. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
I was just going to ask if you guys did any exploratory movement of any of the existing siding. I happen to have a building that was cocooned, like what I would call this building is cocooned. My building was cocooned in concrete. This one's cocooned in vinyl, but all the original fabric was underneath the cocoon. I'm just wondering if you guys did any exploratory.
No, we have not. We would have to that would be the next step. We'd have to get a crane, get up underneath the siding and see. But we're looking at the condition of the facade and how it essentially looks like it warped in some cases. And, so I'm pretty confident that the condition itself is in dire repair. So, but no, we have not done any exploratory.
Yeah, my building had every window was changed. They were all vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
But when I pulled the concrete off, the original window frames were still there.
Mm-hmm.
The original window casings were there.
Mm-hmm.
All the siding was there. Everything was there. So it's
I've
kind
had
of
to do
like
that.
to me. I kind of prefer to see that and say, okay, I see that it's gone.
Well, we can
that
rest
it's destroyed.
assured, Mr. Sandkamp, that the commercial is there's no way to honestly say that there's anything left of the commercial components. And if you look at really focus on that 1938 card, I mean they were the main architectural elements in that era, and main architectural elements of that building, and they're not there at all. So that would have to be somehow duplicated or replicated.
I would agree that's missing. Yes, it's gone.
So
I would disagree that it's entirely missing on at least one of the buildings. I think it's 250 is the corner building. You can see that on the 2nd Street side, there are these projecting what looked like would have been storefront cornices.
Yeah, I think I
and that they
mentioned
were
that.
clad over with metal, but because it wasn't the sort of primary street, the owner, whoever had that building at the time, didn't take the effort to take it off. They just covered over it.
I
So
agree.
I do think there likely could be historic material underneath that.
Those metal components were the roof edge of that storefront. What was below that was the actual storefront, which was removed, and then it was brought back to the actually main part of the exterior
What I'm
wall.
saying is I don't assert the assertion that it's all gone. I don't think that that's entirely, I don't necessarily believe that, because I think that there's a chance that there are still commercial, the storefront cornices present on the 2nd Street facade of the corner building.
So the answer is I didn't do any. There was no exploratory work done. I could see. It seems as if, however, all the cornice work on 240 was completely removed, because right now it's just flat aluminum. So I wouldn't think that. I mean, we can do an exploration on that, but I know that all of those brackets, the dentals, whether or not the freeze board is underneath the siding, I'd have to get in there and take a look. And again, I know historic is not necessarily supposed to look at the structure, but you can tell from just the facade itself the condition of the structure.
Well,
But
yeah.
I would, oh, sorry.
That raises another process question for me, because if this were an application pertaining to a historic property, it's not uncommon for us to expect an applicant to do exploratory demolition, to look for artifacts or evidence of the historic condition for potential restoration or renovation, but this is not. So this is not a historic property. So is this an application where we have to kind of take the building as we find it, or is there an expectation that the applicant would do exploratory demo?
I have been asked to do that for buildings in historic areas. I've not had, actually, this is actually the first building we've had and asked for demolition that has been in this kind of condition.
I'll answer that for us, right? This is not a certificate of appropriateness. This is not a certificate of no effect, right? We cannot condition this. We cannot, ask the applicant to do exploratory demo and then come back, right? I would strongly recommend looking at the application that is before you. What is there on the building, right? The application is to completely demolish these properties.
Yeah, that was my suspicion, and if I suspected there were something nefarious going on, like demolition by neglect, I would, go down a different path. But as I understand it, these changes to the property happened long ago. It may not have even been the current
Over
owner.
many years.
Okay.
This is not something that you can tell from just the wear on the material that you see there, how long ago it's been like this. So I don't know how long the client owned the building. Do you know offhand?
I do not know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at quite a few of these demo applications now, and from the photographs and evidence that Mr. Davino presented, and my own anecdotal experience living downtown for 15 years and walking past this building many thousands of times, to me it doesn't retain any historic significance, but I'm curious to hear what everyone else thinks.
Any additional questions, comments for the applicant?
Okay. I think it's interesting to hear how an historic sense of the building. I actually have a different feeling of it. If I think that this building was built around the 1870s, 1880s, especially the corner one, I think if someone from that time would walk the street, they could very likely recognize the building because it has a very interesting and very defined shape, which makes it very special, I think.
Whatever building.
So a person from that time would recognize the building as it is, even though it was altered. So I personally have a historic sense of the building.
May I? The site will not. The configuration will never change. Whatever building you put on that will always. That's the result you get when you put a diagonal path through a grid pattern, and it's evident in New York. And so that form, that pie-shaped site, whatever building does get, but that will always be there, and it would most likely take a very similar massing and this very similar form to what's there now, because the site you can't go into another building. It's basically you have a large building on one side and then roads all around it. So I agree that the configuration is unique, and someone from that era or or someone that remembers what the building looked like may understand that, but if you put a new building there, it would still have that same form. So.
It's like second tired or whatever you call it, like
how you call it when it's like on the corner.
I think I understand what you're saying, and I disagree that any new building would necessarily have the same massing, because, right, the storefront level has a prow that goes all the way to the sidewalk, whereas the upper stories does not, and I don't think it's likely a new building would necessarily follow that massing, paradigm.
Okay.
But, so I see what, is being said about someone would recognize that building by its form.
Yeah.
And I think that form would go away if a new building were built.
Okay. I have thought about the design of a building that would go there, and I can tell you that it's a neighborhood commercial zone. You're allowed to do 5 stories, and the form the form would be very similar to what's there now. So.
Any additional questions or comments? Good. Move on to public comment. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak regarding this application, please approach the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public present and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, Mr. Davino had up the 1938 and, a number of current photos of the property. So I don't feel it necessary to go down there and plug in again and show everything. But if anybody would like to see anything specific, please feel free to say so, and I would be more than happy to. I will state, so the reason that the memos both state that they are both in districts that are mentioned in the Jersey City Historic Preservation Master Plan element. They are both within the boundaries of the Italian Village Historic District, which had a New Jersey Historic Preservation Office opinion in 2019, and then the Lower Newark Ave Historic District, which had an opinion in 1990. And this is just a little snippet from the master plan. It says, this is talking about specifically the Lower Newark Ave Historic District. It says, the boundary extends down to Newark Ave to include the 4 properties at 244, 250, 240, 236 to 238, 229, 231 Newark Ave. So I do agree it is not listed in that bottom section. It's not in the chart of all the historic properties or identified properties within the Jersey City, but staff contends that it is mentioned within the historic preservation plan element. That is one of the major things that we look for when reviewing these applications, to see that it has been previously identified by whether it's the 1985 Phase 1 and Phase 2, whether it was by a state level survey such as these, or if it was through the city's own survey work, such as the Ward D survey that we did in 2022, or some of the other surveys that we've done throughout the years. Additionally, so as far as significance goes, staff contends that both of the applications really focus on criteria C, the architectural elements. They both embody distinctive characters of a type, period, and method of construction, most especially if no other or very few buildings or structures within the same association have survived. Staff also feels that they maintain integrity of location, design, setting, feeling, and association. I do agree with Mr. Davino that there have been alterations to the exterior of these buildings, but those primarily affect the materials and workmanship of the building, and that it does maintain 5 other of the criteria of integrity, which I personally or professionally believe that reaches the level of significance. So again, staff's recommendation is a motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer. Please feel free to continue this discussion.
I have a question for staff. Do you
course.
feel that one of these properties retains more historic integrity than the other, or would you say they're roughly equivalent?
I think 250, the corner, definitely has a more unique situation. I think the form is much more unique. The massing is much more unique, and specifically kind of ties into that idea of, very few, we don't have many of these kind of corner properties within Jersey City. I think that one retains some of those levels of integrity more, but I think as far as particularly setting, location, as Mr. Davino pointed out, right, when you're walking around that section of Jersey City, you have all of these buildings that are surrounding it that have really high levels of integrity. And, if you remove these two buildings, I think you start to unwind the entire surrounding area. You really have kind of a cohesive district right there, which is what the state opinion says. And I think these kind of anchor that district. So I think removal of these would change, as Commissioner Kalbach was saying, kind of the feel of walking around and what somebody from the 1880s would feel like walking around these properties.
I frankly, I had a little trouble following that last comment where you said these buildings have less historic integrity, but they anchor the district. And
I don't think they have less I think they have, as far as form, like specific factors of integrity, like form and massing, I think the 250, this corner property, has a little bit more. I think as far as setting, and they both maintain the same amount. And I believe that's a very strong level of integrity due to the surrounding historic properties.
Okay. So you're saying that there's this sort of almost symbiosis between these properties and then the other surrounding properties that have retained their historic.
So for me,
character.
when I'm looking at a historic property, that is what I judge setting based off of. How much of the surrounding setting of the property has maintained historic integrity, and can kind of evoke that same feeling of the period when it was constructed. Obviously, all of Jersey City has been altered in some form or another, but I think particularly in this setting, you have a pretty dense cluster of historic properties that surround these two buildings.
And I think that's an interesting, take on what that is, because I was thinking about for 240, similar to 250, if you look at the 2nd Street facade, the brackets are all still present, and possibly the fascia is behind the siding, because once again, that was just like not the primary street where the modernization concerns were less for the building owners at that time. And it speaks to the buildings on the 2nd Street side. Like, those buildings are in conversation on 2nd Street in a way that they might not be on Newark Avenue.
Any further comments, questions for staff?
You mentioned that these properties, their addresses were mentioned in the narrative for what was it that you said it was? What was the? Can you just refresh me on what it was? It was part of the master plan?
Yeah. So there's a section in the master plan, in that narrative section, the first however many 100 pages of it or whatever, that has one specific section that's on historic districts within Jersey City. In that section, kind of the subheading is, below is a description of each of the identified and eligible historic districts in Jersey City that have not been designated at a local level. Then it goes through each one of which is the Lower Newark Ave Historic District. And at the end of that one, it has the boundary justification for it. And it states, the boundary extends down Newark Ave to include the 4 properties at 244 to 250, 240, 236 to 238, and 229 to 231 Newark Ave.
So it's just detailing what would be the perimeter of a proposed historic district that is an eligible one.
So I would argue that it's specifically stating those properties for a reason, not just strictly the boundary, because that is not the exact boundary of It's just justifying why those properties are included.
But it's not an actual historic district right now. It would be eligible to be.
They
one.
are.
That is correct.
Yeah, that is correct. They're not locally designated. They have a state formal opinion. If we have no more questions or comments, we can move on to a motion for each one. I think going one by one probably makes the most sense. And again, staff's recommendation is let me get the wording, a motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer. And we will start with B-25-0141. This is 250 Newark. So this is the one on the corner.
I guess I'll make the motion.
Can you state what the motion you're making is?
To deny the demolition.
Okay.
And can you just explain why?
Not in the most technical terms, but it does seem historic to me. And it seems like it was within the character of being historic. I don't know how else to put it.
I mean, the criteria that the commission is supposed
Yes,
to
the
review
criteria that the commission put forward, having 5 of the 7, I believe was said. That seems to me a fair enough reason to deny the applicant.
I will second it, citing integrity of location and setting, feeling, and association. So 4 of the 7 criteria.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny, to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer. Commissioner Gucciardo is absent. Commissioner Sandcamp.
I'll vote aye.
Commissioner Gunther.
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon.
Nay. Do you need me to state a reason?
I think it would be a safe bet.
I'd say it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
I would just say that I found Mr. Davino's testimony and report to be persuasive. I take staff's comments about the setting and Commissioner Gunther's comments about the conversation that these buildings are having with the surrounding buildings. However, I feel in an area where we have a high density of well-maintained and restored historic buildings, these buildings really pale in comparison, and I don't believe that there is an integrity of workmanship, materials. As I referenced earlier, I do not get any kind of special historic feeling when I walk past these 2 particular buildings, and I do think that there would be a loss to the area if they were demolished, but it would really be minimal.
Commissioner Edgecombe.
Aye.
Commissioner Kalbach.
Aye.
Vice Chair Garriga.
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Gordon. Literally everything he said.
Chair Cronin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was the correct vote aye or nay, right? Nay.
Gotcha. Chair Cronin.
Aye.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 in favor, 2 against, 0 abstentions. The motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demo application to the zoning officer is approved. And now we will move on to 240 Newark. Again, this is B-25-0386. Again, staff's recommendation is a motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer.
I'll make the motion, citing integrity of design, setting, materials, workmanship, and feeling and association. I think that that building has more in common with the buildings across Second Street and than it does than it does relate to the buildings on Newark Avenue, which are new, modern, tall buildings. And I think they're just part of that smaller scale, and you can see that the fenestration pattern is retained on the building. And I agree with what Commissioner Sandkamp has said, that I think a lot of the material may be cocooned behind modern cladding.
Do we have a second?
I second and agree to what Commissioner Gunter says about the distinctive integrity of location, the historic sense, and it's also mentioned in the historic preservation master plan as part of the Italian village.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Sandkamp,
I'll vote aye again.
Commissioner Gunther,
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon,
Nay, and I'm not going to repeat my earlier commentary. I'll just add that arguably this building has less significant historic significance because it does not have the unique lot size and pulled back second floor that the corner lot has. So for those reasons, nay.
Commissioner Edgecombe,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Kalbach,
Aye.
Vice Chair Grugia,
No.
any comments?
Same as Commissioner Gordon. I agree with what he said the first time. And yeah.
Great. Chair Cronin?
No.
Okay. Want to add anything? Or?
Well, I agree that with what Commissioner Gordon said, that this has even less. The other one I thought was passable, even though I didn't articulate it very well. But I think this one, I agree with him on this, that it's not.
Okay. So we have 4 in favor, 3 against, no abstentions. The motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we would like, take a quick break, maybe a 10-minute break.
A 10-minute break or 5-minute break, guys? We'll do 5. Okay, we'll make it 10. All right.
We'll come back at about 8:37.
Okay.
One of our commissioners has a newborn to get home and take care of, so in the interest of his sanity and
Just missing one commissioner here.
I have a 4-year-old, so keep me here.
Okay. It is 8:40 if you want to call the meeting back to order.
Calling us back to order. We are looking at new business now. And our next case is H-24-0451, Charles Harrington III, Esquire, applicant on behalf of Mansion Capital LLC owners, 231st Street. This is in the Harsimus Cove Historic District. They're going for a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new 4-story, 4-unit residential building and associated site work. Recommendation to the Jersey City Planning Board.
Okay, thank you. For the record, Charles Harrington of Connell Foley, on behalf of the applicant. As the chairman just mentioned, this property is within the Harsimus Cove Historic District. It's a vacant lot. It's been a vacant lot for some time. The proposal is to provide for infill here, 4 stories, 4 units. We have been working with staff for some time on the project, and which has resulted in what's being presented to you tonight. We will be asking for 2 variances, although I know that's not the jurisdiction of this board, but just for full disclosure, it's a height variance and a building coverage. The height variance, as you'll see during the presentation, is really associated with the stoops, because there's a stoop or a pattern of stoops along this street. So by bringing the building up, we can accommodate that. So that it has the same look and feel down the street. And so I have, Will Weckerman is our our architect here, and he'll walk you through this and kind of explain how this all, came about. And you'll see you have different heights of buildings on the street as well. It's not, some historic blocks are just static across the way, but we do have some deviations along this block front.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state spell your name for the record.
Sure. It's William Weckenman. Last name is Weckenmann. And staff notes that Will has previously been qualified in front of this board as an expert in the field of architecture. Feel free to begin.
Thank you. Yes, as Chuck mentioned, this has been a long journey to get here, so we're happy to be presenting this to you tonight. This is an infill project on the north side of First Street. You can see here with the block plan, it's an existing vacant lot, and we are proposing a new 4-story building here, which has a 0 front yard setback to match the adjacent buildings, and is generally in keeping with the massing of the block with regards to rear and side yard setbacks. I just want to call attention, Chuck mentioned the stoops and the increased heights of the first floors along this block. In addition to these projecting stoops, we also have a continuous front yard on all of the properties on this side of First Street, which is also another unique factor which you'll see we're maintaining on the site plan. We have 2 variances, one related to the height and the second related to building coverage, which again it's kind of a quirk with the zoning, where a building that's compliant with the bulk regulations and the setbacks with the 0 front yard will have a 70% building coverage. So in this case, we worked very closely with staff to keep that number under 65%, which is closer to the 60%, which is the underlying standard for this zone. So moving on, we have, this is an existing site plan here on your left. It's a surface parking lot currently. There are some remnants of a garage towards the rear of the property. There's a very large curb cut and a chain link fence and gate along the front property line. All of that will be removed as part of the application, and the site will be cleared for the new building. So starting from the street and working our way back, we are proposing a series of sidewalk and street improvements, which include removing the curb cut and planting a new street tree. We are proposing a new stoop for the building, which is in line with the adjacent stoop and the other adjoining buildings on the block. In addition to that, we're matching the fence line that exists with the neighbor. So we're going to be providing a small landscape area in the front yard. And we do have an access passageway which runs the entire length of the first floor and leads to the rear yard of the building. That's a building code requirement that's been changed in recent years. So we are providing that on the first floor level of the building. We're proposing 4 floors with an occupied roof deck on the roof. We do have a green roof buffer towards the front of the building with the occupiable deck areas towards the center. And then we do have a rooftop bulkhead for accessing the roof with a sloped roof above the stair to minimize the visual impact of this, the rooftop appurtenances. And I'll speak more on that on a later slide. We're also proposing permeable pavers and a new patio for the rear yard, as well as some additional landscaping and green space. These are just some of our standard site details. Lighting selections, I won't spend too much time on these. And then these are the city site details. Again, I'll skip over those. As I mentioned, we are elevating the first floor to be in keeping with the surrounding streetscape. So as a result, we have an opportunity to provide a cellar in this building, which will be used for storage, refuse room, as well as a sprinkler and utilities. So that'll all be in the cellar level of the building. Moving on to the first floor, we have a small vestibule and stair up to the upper floors. And then the first floor has a single 2-bed, 2-bath unit with a bedroom in the front, bathrooms and a second bedroom towards the center, and then a kitchen and living area which opens up to the rear yard. The second floor plan is a similar configuration in that there's one unit on the second floor. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit, which is flipped. So on this floor we have the living room and the kitchen in the front, second bedroom and bathrooms in the center, and then 2 additional bedrooms towards the rear. We are providing cutouts in the floor plate to allow for light and air to these bedrooms, and then also provide the required court ventilation for the existing buildings. So that's why we have these two. There are lot line windows here on the west side and the east side, and that's why we have these small cutouts in the floor plan. The third and fourth floor are configuration of the building is a little bit different. Here we split the floors in half, and we have a duplex unit in the front, and then another duplex unit in the back. Both of these apartments have a third bedroom on the lower level, as well as a kitchen and living room. And then moving up the building, there are 2 additional bedrooms and 2 additional bathrooms with a staircase up to the roof. The roof plan is very similar to site plan. So I won't go into any additional detail here. The only difference is that you can see the small amenity space and access to the roof deck. The building elevation is fairly simple. We are proposing a face brick as the primary facade material with punch window openings. The windows are a modern configuration, but are proportionally similar to other buildings that are found on the block. We are also installing these eyebrows, these cast stone eyebrows on the facade, which are referencing the building next door, which does have some horizontal brick detailing. So that's kind of a nod to the building next door. We are also providing a brick masonry cornice, which is detailed on a following page, but it is proportionally similar to what would have been found on a historic building, but it's a contemporary take on the cornice design. I do want to address the first floor because Michael did note that in the staff report. So because we have to provide the alleyway to the rear yard, we have a little bit of an imbalance in the facade, meaning the openings are, traditionally you would see these openings all fall in line down the building. But because we have this, this alleyway on the far side of the building, sort of throws off the rhythm. So what we're doing is creating a thicker cast stone banding above the first floor to divide the lower level of the building from the upper floors. And we also shifted over the main entrance door to the building to match this side. So, doing so is a little bit atypical, but it does provide more balance within the facade itself. The rear facade is similar design, although we're using brick as well, but we do have some larger windows on this elevation. It's a little bit more of a contemporary configuration, but the materials and the windows themselves are consistent with the front of the building. This is the east elevation, which is the majority is right on the property line, but we do have these this recessed area for the courtyard and the alleyway to the rear yard. So we are using lap siding as the primary materials for this alleyway, though we do plan on enclosing it with a gate. So this won't be visible from the street. It'll be concealed behind the gate. This obviously is in the center of the building, so again, it won't be visible from the street. The west elevation is a little bit different because the west elevation is partially visible from Erie Street. I'll show it on a later exhibit, but you can see a portion of this facade directly from Erie Street and then obliquely as you walk down the block away from the building. This bulkhead, none of the rooftop appurtenances will be visible from directly across the street, but this wall, this facade here, and portions of the bulkhead will be visible from Erie Street and, like I said, obliquely as you move down the block. So what we're doing here is continuing the brick as a primary material on this side elevation so that the building has a cohesive appearance when you look at it from the side. For the design of the bulkhead, we took cues from the building next door, which also has an obliquely visible bulkhead. And what we did was we set it back slightly, and we're using the lap siding material on the bulkhead itself to make it appear visually lighter and detached from the primary massing of the building. So again, that was designed to minimize its visual impact as you see it from further down the block. We also reduced the height of this substantially. So we have a 7-foot, we're at code minimum here for the height of this. So we did pull this down substantially to try to make it as small as possible. This is the building section. As I mentioned, none of the rooftop bulkheads or screening or HVAC equipment will be visible from the street. And here we have the proposed and existing and proposed block elevations. And as you can see here, oops, too far. All of these stoops are elevated. So all the first floor of the buildings on the block are elevated. So we worked closely with staff at the onset of this project to determine the correct height for this, for the first floor of this building. And we felt that 48 inches or about 4 feet was consistent with the block front and helped create a more harmonious streetscape at the sidewalk level. Even though we are asking for the height variance, there are 4- and 5-story buildings on this block, including the building immediately next door. So this building at 4 floors, even though it does have the additional height, is consistent with the other four-story building on the block, and really helps to transition from these lower three-story buildings closer to Erie Street, and this five-story building, these two five-story buildings at the center of the block. So kind of has a nice step up as you go down the block. This is just our standard shadow study, pretty straightforward. The shadows and the massing of the building are consistent with the other buildings on the block, so the impact from this building is fairly minimal. We do have materials here, so so we have samples of the face brick and the mortar, and then we have two different options that we're considering for the cast stone, as well as the brown for the windows, and the black that we're using for the railings and the ironwork on the project. So I'll just end with this final exhibit here. This is the view. I'll start over here. This is the view of the block from Erie Street. It's visible over this one-story section of the building on the corner. So you can see the two other buildings on the block. So we'll be kind of somewhere in this general vicinity. It's a common condition here on Erie Street. This is the opposite side of the block over to Rico's, where the new construction building is somewhat visible through the gaps in the buildings. I do have this diagram here indicating the extent of the building which will be visible. So again, it's only directly visible when you're looking over this one-story section. And it's also partially obscured by the neighbor next door. So when you project these sight lines onto the side elevation, this is the section of the building that will be visible from Erie Street. And finally, we have some other contextual photos. And this detail here is kind of what we were referencing for the design of the bulkhead. So we're pulling the same idea from the building next door to help minimize the visual impact of that of the bulkhead. Similar material, lap siding, and then a similar transition from the main brick massing to a lighter frame material above. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question about the windows. So I don't have a problem with the sort of more modern take on the windows that are two lights when you think about the whole assembly. But the operable sash, is that an awning window that's hinged at the top and comes out from the facade?
Sure. So these windows will be provided with a limiter. So they could only open about 4 inches, which is enough to meet the code requirements for light and air and ventilation. But it's not so much where you'd have these big projecting awning windows out on the street. It keeps the facade fairly, keeps the look fairly cohesive between windows that are open and windows that are closed.
Yeah, I was wondering, is there a reason you didn't propose sort of tilt in, like hopper windows, so that it wouldn't break the plane of the facade when the windows are open?
I can't recall the specific conversation that we had about the windows, but I believe we would be open to that suggestion if the commission prefers tilt-in windows or an in-swing casement, we could accommodate that.
Yeah, just think about when the windows are open. That's a very modern condition to have, them open that way. And if, at least if they tilt in, you're not breaking the plane of the masonry. So just something to think about.
Sure.
I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on it.
Could we focus for a moment on how far into the donut the proposed building will extend and how that compares to other buildings on the block? It does seem like quite large, especially with the height. I don't think I have a problem with the height, but when you combine it with the size of the building intruding to the donut, it seems like a lot.
Sure. We do have a 31 and a half foot rear yard. So the rear yard is compliant. So from a zoning perspective, there's no variance associated with it. It does project beyond the buildings to the west, simply due to the fact that this is a deeper lot. But we do have, it's the condition on this side of the block is different from even this side where there's a more uniform rear yard setback. Here, it varies from building to building, and you have additions on these buildings that encroach into that donut. You have this big, building here on the opposite side of the block. So, and it is shorter than the buildings next door.
Could you explain what those are, because those don't seem to be full width extensions?
No, this building does have a slight setback for the rear 15 feet or so, but this 5-story massing continues up the full height of the building. It's not like a building where they put an addition on at some point that's lower than the main structure. These buildings were actually constructed this way, at full 5 stories. So we do have a deeper rear yard than the adjoining properties. And this neighbor does have an accessory building, a shed of some sort in the rear yard here. So we are further back than either adjoining properties. I have a photo of this, but I don't think I have it with me.
And on the primary facade, that second door that leads through to the back of the building, is that just a solid steel sheet? What is that?
Yeah, it's I'll go to the elevation. It is a solid steel panel with we have 2 sections for it, and then we have a frosted glass transom above. So it's a fairly contemporary gate design, as opposed to maybe a more traditional design that would have bars. But we wanted to sort of maintain the solidness of the facade and, again, obscure some of the views through to the backyard. So we went with a more solid configuration for that gate.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I would put it to staff or to other commissioners if they have any opinions on the propriety of that. And then the other item I wanted to put to staff was, I saw it looks like the gates and the rails are proposed to be steel. I know I've seen for historic properties that would typically be iron, but this is not a historic property. So is steel appropriate here, you think?
Yeah, steel's appropriate. A lot of what we see for the new construction properties are steel gates and steel work. I'm a blacksmith, so I'm trying not to get too much into the weeds of the difference between steel and iron is very minimal at this point. So it could be, historically it would have been cast iron. I don't know if cast iron is something that the applicant would be willing to explore, but I think more and more on new construction we're seeing steel gates.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No. Does that conclude your testimony,
Does.
Chuck?
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
That concludes the presentation, and just for the record, in the event the commission were to vote in the affirmative, the conditions listed in the staff report would be acceptable.
Okay. We'll move on to public comment. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak on this application, please approach the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public present and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we will move into staff comments. So in the 1938 tax card photo, we actually have the building that was here, but it was demolished in 1938 right after the photo was taken. It was a very small building that got demolished, and it has been a vacant lot since, vacant paved lot since. Staff finds the application to be mostly consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic preservation and the Jersey City zoning ordinance, Chapter 345-71, historic design standards. Kind of looking at the two proposed variances that the applicant is seeking. The first is that building height, 40 feet is permitted. They're proposing 43 feet and 11 inches. And then the other variance is for that maximum building coverage. 60% is permitted. 63.8% is proposed. When I look at the height, I agree completely with what the architect was saying, that you see the building step up on the other side going up towards that 5-story mid-block building. And I think that this provides kind of a step down back towards these smaller 3-story and a basement buildings. So I think it kind of creates a cohesion to the entire block. As far as the maximum building coverage, the applicant did work with staff to bring down that coverage. I think initially it was in like 65, 67 range. And, I do see the 63.8% as a good compromise. As the applicant stated, the two buildings to the right do extend slightly further in, and really 3.8% is pretty minimal when it comes to the whole of it. They are maintaining the bulk, the setback requirement of 30 feet, of over 30 feet. So staff does not see an issue with the proposed variances. Additionally, as they stated, they are including the stoop, which is elevating the first floor a little bit, which also accounts for that increase in height at the top. As again, the applicant stated, one of the things that I worked with them a lot on was that first floor, kind of maintaining that rhythm. And I do feel that with the addition of the transom light, as well as the two transom lights, it does help to really balance out the first floor. I think that the solid steel gate kind of mirrors the door on the other side, probably a little bit better than a, metal panel or like mesh gate would. I think that would read kind of slightly misbalanced or almost unweighted with the mesh on one side and then a solid door, solid glass door on the other side. Additionally, as far as all the exterior building materials. I feel that the applicant has done a good job using the extant materials on the surrounding historically significant buildings to influence this and really kind of pull in some of those design details from the neighboring buildings, particularly that horizontal banding, as well as the kind of the brick articulation from the building next door. They have 2 proposed roof decks at the top, but these are pretty consistent with similar proposals seen throughout the historic district. As the applicant noted, the bulkhead and the building will be slightly visible through that alleyway or above that first story building, but staff does not believe that this will cause an adverse effect to the surrounding historic districts. One thing that I will note that is on the plans, the applicant didn't bring up, something that was discussed was the conduit that's on the right-hand side of the building, recessing that within the building. The applicant is going to work with the power company, the utility companies, to see if that is a solution that would be attainable. And as such, that is the first condition that is proposed in the staff report. The applicant shall work with the utility company and HPC staff to recess the utility mast into the exterior wall assembly. If this is not permitted, the applicant shall run the utility lines into the PVC conduit and paint the conduit to match the brick and facade materials, which is kind of the standard condition that we see. But if they can recess it, that would be preferable. Again, as proposed, HPC staff finds the project will not cause an adverse effect on the character and or integrity of the surrounding historic district and the Harsimus Cove Historic District. The HPC staff recommends a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness and recommend approval to the planning board with the following conditions. That one that I just read out. Additionally, they also will require a franchise ordinance for that front areaway, the fence, the plantings, as well as the stoop. So the applicant shall seek approval of a franchise ordinance for the construction of front yard railing and areaway as it extends beyond the property line. If any component of that approval alters the proposal, the applicant shall submit a deviation request in writing to HPC staff and provide plans for review showing the existing, approved, and revised conditions. If necessary, the applicant will reappear in front of the HPC to seek approval of changes. I did note Commissioner Gunther's proposed condition that the applicant shall work with HPC staff to revise the front facade windows to in-swing windows prior to the submission of construction documents. And then the remaining conditions are our standard conditions. If anyone has any comments or additional conditions I can add. Otherwise, again, HPC staff's recommendation is approval and recommendation to the approval of a certificate of appropriateness and recommendation of approval to the planning board with those conditions.
I'll make the motion for referral to the planning board. And then what was the other part?
Approval of a certificate of appropriateness with conditions.
Okay. Approval for the COA with conditions.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Sandkamp?
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther?
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon?
Aye.
Commissioner Edgecombe?
Aye.
Commissioner Kabach? Vice Chair Garriga?
Aye.
Chair Cronin?
Aye.
So we have 7 in favor, no against, no abstentions. The certificate of appropriateness with conditions and recommendation to the Jersey City Planning Board is approved.
Thank you, gentlemen. And so now we're moving on to a demolition review.
No problem.
And our first and only demolition review is 738 Garfield Avenue, and this is B-25-0832.
My name. Raise your right hand.
Yes.
First. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your full name, spell it, and address.
Brett Schundler, B-R-E-T. Schundler is S-C-H-U-N-D-L-E-R. 299 Varick Street, Jersey City. Thank you. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Friends of Quality Education, which is developing the charter school campus, Canal Crossing. Let me ask if you've had a chance to actually see the document that's connected to this. It's the demolition permit. Otherwise, if it would be helpful, I have 10 copies with me, and they do have pictures and maps and diagrams, so that might be helpful.
Yeah, I'll take a copy, please.
All right.
And we will just mark that as A1.
Yeah, and it's in your packet as well, but I know that might not be as immediately accessible.
Oh, yeah, never mind. Sorry, I strike that. You did. I uploaded that. Sorry.
Yeah, I know it's in your packet.
We don't have to mark it. Sorry. I'm getting.
Sir.
I must say I was surprised when Mr. Akimoff recommended against the demolition, but I guess that is because I was not aware of some of the new ways that we're looking at properties, because this, again, is not a historic district. But I know that when you look at properties that don't have historic associations and that are not in a historic district, you do have different criteria. And when I look through the 7 criteria, and the last of the 7 criteria, of course, is 7 sub-criteria, I would think that if you're going to look at a property as being something that is to be protected, even though it's not in a historic district and doesn't have historic associations, it would be because there's a number of those criteria that it met. And it really doesn't meet hardly any. It does meet arguably some of the sub-criteria of the 7th criteria. Because you can say, I think pretty much about every house in Jersey City, that it was built in the style of the time it was built. Now, if you talk about things like historic setting, we talked earlier tonight about, let's say, the house that was in downtown off of Newark Avenue. It is surrounded by, older buildings. This property, as mentioned by Mr. Akimoff in his memo to you, there's been a lot of new construction in the neighborhood. And if I was appreciating the degree to which, you can't just have well, let me put it this way. I would normally think that if you're going to say something is going to be by a particular criteria protected, it would be because most of the criteria apply to it. But if the issue is that most of the criteria don't apply to it, but some criteria might apply to it, then the issue becomes, well, should those criteria be enough in a particular instance that makes you want to preserve that property? Now, in this particular case, I think setting is an issue that would be important. And setting, I think, would be an issue where if you have a lot of houses that are of a similar era, you begin to get a feel when you come upon that. But that's not what you get here. On one half, let's say in one end of the block, you have a gas station, which is a large gas station and car wash. On the other, you have a automobile used car dealership. Then you have a lot of different houses with very different, looks to them, some of which are more recently constructed. So yes, it is a house that does, it was built in the 1920s, and it was built in the style that houses were built in the 1920s. And so you can say that, elements of the house, meet the particular, they're evocative of a particular house. But the house itself and the context that it is in doesn't give you any great sense of history whatsoever. And for that matter, neither does that side of the street. Now, it would be another question if you go across Garfield Avenue and you go into the neighborhoods of Greenville and Bergen-Lafayette. And where this is located is right at the intersection of Greenville and Lafayette. And where the 2,500 students who are going to be at this campus live, half of them live in this immediate neighborhood of Greenville and Lafayette. And it is it's in the redevelopment plan, which this school campus was constructed to fulfill, that they would take a property right where we're proposing to take a property and demolish that property expressly so that kids in the neighborhood could go to the school 100 feet from their house. Right now, kids who are in Greenville might have to walk an extra 7 blocks to get to the school that is 100 feet from their house. This particular area is one that you can't approach from the south. There is no approach from the south. You have Garfield Avenue is on a cliff at a certain point, and you have the elevated Bayview Avenue access road that leads from Garfield Avenue to exit 14B on the Turnpike, which is there. There's nothing that goes under that. You also have the Conrail and the light rail tracks on the east side. There's no access from the east side. There's no access from the south side. And on the west side, you have a 3-block long, group of houses, and there's no cross streets because there's, a steep hill on the other side. It was never developed on the other side. And so when they created the redevelopment plan, that this campus is directly fulfilling, they created it, as you'll note on the, on the drawing of the acquisition plan for the Canal Crossing redevelopment area. They created it with a property on Garfield to be taken to be turned into an access way. And actually, when Mayor Fulop came up to me and said, "This is where you should put your campus. We need schools here," he said, "And there's a parcel that's open and that you could, that's part of that you could buy, and you could create what has been planned to be an access." What he didn't know was it's already sold, and there's a house on it now, right next to us, brand new house, not one that's exactly supporting the setting and the feel, which is actually noted by Michael Achamoff in his memo to you, that there have been these new properties developed that kind of takes away some of the feel. Now, I point that out, though, because there's a reason the redevelopment plan had that. It is incredibly important. We literally, again, we'll have 2,500 students here. Half of them live in Greenville and Bergen Lafayette. And when the master plan, when we were reviewed for Section 31 review by the Jersey City Planning Board, and you see their comments in the back of this, their comments focus on how important it is to have excellent schools in these neighborhoods and to allow, the children in the area to have something like this. And if, I was, I must say, and I do note it in the letter, that I had, before I was mayor of Jersey City, I was the president of the Downtown Coalition of Neighborhood Associations. And my greatest achievement while I was mayor was getting Glenn Cunningham, who was in a runoff for mayor in 1989, to pass the Historic Preservation Ordinance. I proudly have an 1867 house with a historic plaque on it. And I love our historic neighborhoods. First thing I did when I was mayor was actually buy the Lowe's, which the Harts Mountain was going to destroy, and which the city council had no interest in buying. But I filled the room with hundreds of people, and they saw things my way. And I didn't think that was appropriate tonight. But, the reality was we saved the Lowe's. And the next thing we did towards the end of my administration was we bought the Apple Tree House. Historic preservation is very important. But the way you save historic neighborhoods and the way you maintain the social fabric, not just the buildings, is to enable people in those neighborhoods to have great schools for their children. That's what makes it so that people don't move away and you save the social fabric. And that's what makes it so people reinvest in their properties and you save those properties. What results in abandonment and vacant homes and historic neighborhoods being lost is when you don't have that, which is why when the this Section 31 review by the planning board of this public school campus, was held, they have such glowing comments. And what they all focus on is that these historic neighborhoods will now have immediate access to this campus. But if they only knew that you could live this is a long, very narrow, it's a 3-block long, narrow campus that's behind this 3-block long wall of houses and there's no going through them. So if you happen to live, on the south side next to the elementary school that a kindergartner is going to go to, they have to walk 7 blocks to go up to Caven Point Avenue, across and back down through the campus to get to their elementary school. If we don't do what the redevelopment plan foresaw as being important, which was create an access way to the middle of the campus directly from Garfield Avenue, so those children could have direct access to the campus. The master plan, and the planning board loved it. The neighborhood associations loved it. Jersey City needs it. But the reality is, without taking a house, it can't exist. And you instead are saying that, yes, we have these great schools. These are, I would argue, and of course I might have a little pride in these schools, I would argue they're the best public schools in Jersey City, 70% low income. And yet we have every single demographic cohort at our schools outperforms the state averages. There's a 29% what's called achievement gap between poor children and non-poor children in this state. And yet our kids, every single demographic group, they're outperforming the state's performance in terms of learning growth. Now, these are excellent schools, and these are schools that will make people want to live in our communities and want to invest in their homes. But it's important that they be able to get there. Now, we provide bus transportation throughout the city, so we do have students from all over Jersey City, but 50% of them live right there. When we were originally planning to open Beloved, we thought we'd be at the Greenville Hospital, and they ultimately decided they would adaptively reuse that structure as a community health center. So it didn't end up becoming available to us. But while we were recruiting all our students, we expected to be there. So our children are from Greenville, from Bergen, Lafayette. And that's why we're there. That's why the city made that area. They said, we're going to reserve this for a public school campus. It wasn't just to provide support for the new construction that'll happen north in the land. When you drive down Garfield Avenue and you see all that, land, which is presently mud, that's going to be 32 blocks of brand new construction. But they didn't reserve this property just to support that new growth in population. They wanted it to also be able to help Greenville and Bergen Lafayette, not just that section to the north of us. So this is an important decision you're making. It's a decision to actually realize the vision of the redevelopment plan and frankly, realize the vision of the master plan for the city of Jersey City, which always appreciated that you'd have to create an access way directly from Garfield Avenue to the middle of the campus if you don't want to end up having to be that, kindergartners have to walk 7 blocks to get to a building that's, right next to their home. And let's say you're living a little bit further south in Jersey City. Maybe it's one thing to walk 6 or 7 or 8 blocks. It's another to walk 15 or 16. So it's important, I think, that we allow this demolition to occur, allow the redevelopment plan to be fulfilled, allow the master plan to be fulfilled, allow these schools to have the impact that they can have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Schundler?
What's the nearest school to 738 Garfield?
I've never taken, I've never measured it. It might be School 38, which is on Kennedy Boulevard. but it's probably, there's probably, I know there's a street, there's also a school on Union Street. That's a little bit farther northeast of it.
I think there's one on Wilkinson and Bayview, 41.
Yeah.
Center for the Arts.
Yeah.
Which isn't too far off. Maybe 4 to 7 minute walk.
Yeah.
But realistically,
Yeah, I mean, I think you're thinking about things a little bit wrong, though. Remember, these are not. I show you where our population comes from in the back page. That's our students, so you can see that we're right in the middle of it all. But don't think of, well, the kids could go somewhere else. The kids could go somewhere else, but that's not where their parents may want them to go. You know, we've now got our kids, our low-income kids are at every Ivy League school except for Yale right now. This year, we got my alma mater, which, you know, I'm proud of. But we have, you know, I think we're changing lives. And that's one of the reasons the neighborhood was extremely excited by our being there. But I do think they want to be able to get there easily. And they don't have to walk that far to go to a school that close. It's just wrong to have a situation where if you're in the brand new housing construction, that'll be much higher, much more expensive to the north. You could just walk across the street. But if you live in the historic neighborhoods, then you have to walk that far. It's just wrong.
Is this not a lottery-based Jersey City public charter school?
It is, yeah.
So then students come from all over.
They
right?
do.
Anyone who's in Jersey City is
That's
eligible
right.
to apply to the
Yeah,
lottery.
that's right.
So it's
And
not really a neighborhood school.
It's
the way
not,
you're
it's
characterizing
not
it.
a sending district where it's just the immediate neighborhood, but 50% of the kids are from Greenville and from Bergen-Lafayette. That's just a fact.
Okay, and then in that case, my question is,
By the way,
it appears that
that's
there are at least.
1,200. That's 1,250
So then
kids.
this leads me to my next question, which is, there appear to be several lots further up the street that abut the property where there aren't historic structures present. These appear to be vacant lot used for parking. Have you investigated
You're talking about the park, you're talking about the used car dealership?
several empty lots further west on Garfield Avenue?
You-
Within the
well,
next sort of,
Garfield's north or south?
to the
Or
right,
west?
to the right of the
Okay, that's
property.
north.
There are several, looks like
Right,
3
so-
empty lots. There appear to be 3 empty lots with no structures on them. Have you considered acquiring one of those lots that you don't have to demolish a historic property?
There aren't 3 empty lots, but there are lots further north. There is a lot further north. But if the whole reason why the redevelopment plan had that access in the middle of the north-south was because they appreciated the goal was to make it so that kids coming from all directions from the west would be able to come into the middle of the campus. And I could say you can't do it further south because you're basically up on a cliff there. Again, it's a 2-story high, cliff. If you were where let's say the used car dealership is at Bayview Avenue to get to the ground that the school's being constructed on. Now, if you go north, then you're getting close to Cave and Point Avenue, and we have access from Cave and Point Avenue now. The goal is to create, mid-campus access from the west.
I'll take that as a no, thank you.
No, I did look at them. We rejected that for that reason. There's a lot. There's not 3 lots, but there's a lot that's further north. But we rejected it for that reason, and that's why it's also not part of the redevelopment plan that they put it up there.
I had a question about the lottery,
Yes.
and the neighborhood nature of it.
Right.
Where would you say the majority of the applicants come from?
From Greenville, Bergen, Lafayette. That's where more than half. Now, they do come from everywhere. So we have a small number of students who come down from the Heights. But again, because we originally planned to open in Greenville, that's where the vast majority of Beloved's children come from. And, the first thing that happens with a school like Beloved is people tell their friends.
Sure.
So you end up having this extended, now 13 years in, we still have more than half of our students from Greenville and from Bergen-Lafayette.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to focus on the demolition application portion, which is what you're reviewing right now, and just focus on those factors that the ordinance lists.
And I do want to focus on those factors. It says, let's say, historical associations now. A significance of the building or structure. It talks about being identified with a component element of the master plan. We are, and the master plan says, give us an access way. It says whether the building or structure is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our local, state, or national history. No, that's what the ordinance says. Whether the building or structure embodies distinctive characteristics of type, period, or method of construction that represents the work of a master. This building does not represent the work of a master, if you take a look at it. Possess high artistic value. It doesn't have that. Or represent a distinguished, entity whose components may lack individual distinction, most especially if no other or very few buildings or structures with the same association has survived. That's not the case. You have many buildings like this, including it was pointed out that there's a building across the street that, is a similar kind of architecture. So there's a lot of different kinds of buildings, but this is not the only one like this. And then if we look at, whether the building or structure can yield or may reasonably likely yield information important in prehistory or history. No. So criteria. No. And then we have whether the building or structure maintains integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, association. Yes, on some of those. So is the issue that if you meet at least one of all these criteria, that's more important? Or are you meeting the criteria if you meet only one of these there's 7 different, subsections of criteria 7. And I would think if you say you're meeting the criteria, that means meeting more than just 1 or 2 of subsections of one of the 7 criteria.
I'm looking at photos that show this building as probably the most intact on the block. And also I see that there is a crosswalk that is in front of this property, which is maybe not part of our purview, but it is an official crosswalk. There is a curb cut, and the proposal is to demolish this historic resource, which is intact and retains
So
many original
children-
features and materials, and to create a driveway in a position where there is a crosswalk, and I'm really struggling with this request.
The crosswalk is one of the reasons why this is the perfect location. You want children to be able to walk from a crosswalk into your access plaza. You don't want them to walk into a building, into a house, and then walk down the block to get to the access plaza. You want them to take the crosswalk right into the access plaza. It's the perfect location. And it's it's in the middle of the block. That's why in the redevelopment plan, they envisioned the access being in the middle of the block. And this is as middle of the block as you can get, and it's right where a crosswalk is. How could you get more perfect?
It seems like there's a genuine public interest here, and it makes me think on the earlier demo application we were considering pertaining to PSCNG, where there was also arguably a public interest there. However, as has been stated numerous times, that is beyond the scope of our review, and maybe there's a political solution to what may be a political problem. That being said, I thought you made an interesting point or argument about the access point being contemplated in the master plan. I wonder if you could speak more to that, and whether the master plan identified any specific parcel or building, or just generally spoke about access.
So the redevelopment plan looked at a lot that was one building away from this lot. And they identified that lot because at the time that lot was available. Now that lot has a house on it. We looked for 2 years to find someone who we could get the building under contract. We have this building under contract. And, you know, what can I say? That house is not available. And it's actually not as ideal either. Because the other nice thing about this particular property is that the elevation of Garfield Avenue at this location is equal to the first floor, or let's say the roof of the first floor of what is going to be behind it. So it allows students to walk levelly right into an entryway to the school. An entryway will put there, you know, expressly because the crosswalk is there, and this is the perfect location for that access way.
I think if we were looking at the neighboring property, it would be a much stronger argument, of course.
They were both built in 1926. The one that's to the north is a little bit older, or I think maybe 1920, maybe it's 1928. It's the one next to that, which is brand new.
And we have yet to hear from staff on this, but just pulling up the tax card photo and the current photo and flipping back and forth, the building looks to be in pretty good shape. It does, even to my untrained eye, there's a lot of integrity to this building, so we'll have to hear from staff.
Yeah, well, the staff has said he thinks there's integrity, and I'm not disputing that this building, you know, has this building built in 1926 has elements that were left over that were built in 1926, right? I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is that your criteria, that's not the only one. There's a lot of criteria here, and it only meets some subsections, in effect, of the 7th criteria. It doesn't meet the others. So you are authorized to make decisions on the basis of this. And the majority of these say this isn't significant. If you take that criteria that a building is, you know, let's say intact and is evocative of the time it was built, every house in Jersey City that's not in terrible shape meets that criteria. But that's not your remit here. When I pushed the historic preservation ordinance and we actually passed it, our goal wasn't to say that every house in Jersey City could never be changed. Our goal was to save historic neighborhoods that truly have integrity as a neighborhood, and in buildings that have historic significance. That's what this ordinance speaks to. That's what you should be focusing on, I think, especially when the public interest is so greatly, you know, asking for an appreciation that not every building that is in decent shape should be saved.
Any further questions? Okay. Does that conclude your testimony? Okay. We'll move on to public comment. If there are any members of the public, staff sees no members of the public and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I am just going to go down there. I'm going to plug in the iPad just for this one, just so we can all look at the photos together a little bit, and then we can talk through some of the staff comments together. Okay, so it should be pulling up on your screen just for a little reference. I know we've been talking about the property for a little bit now, but we're about almost exactly mid-block on Garfield, right across from Myrtle Ave, where the little red dot is. This This is the 1938 tax card photo that we have. And then this is the photo that the applicant submitted. And we have the staff report, or the demolition memo. So this property was mentioned as within the historic preservation element of the Jersey City Master Plan. It is within the Sherwood-Claremont Historic District. That gets mentioned. And so this was built circa 1926. As far as when I review the ordinance and I look at it, if you're going through kind of those different criteria, you have the first 4 criteria that are set out. Outside of age, you have if it's associated with events, it's associated with people, it's associated with like an architectural specific architectural style, and then if it's potential to yield any information. So if there's potential for archaeology or learn about the building style at all. And those 4 criteria are then influenced by the integrity standards, which are the 7 further location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. So when I look at this, I see that this property, from my professional opinion, maintains or meets the criteria for the architectural style. This is a pretty unique architectural style, very distinctive, very evocative of a specific time and period. And then further in reviewing that, we have the standards of integrity and seeing which of those specific 7 that it meets. In my professional opinion, it meets location, design. I agree that the setting has been diminished. And then materials, workmanship, feeling, and association are really all met in staff's perspective. I would, again, request that the commission, speaks on what they see, and, has any questions or comments for me, please put them on the record.
Mike, could you go back to the Google map view?
Of course. There we go.
Could you just elaborate a bit on what makes the architectural style of this building kind of unique or stand out in your opinion?
Of course. So I think that, you have a really interesting kind of cornice line with this kind of like dentelated dips below. You have this really unique porch with the veranda on top, as well as some brick fenestration that you can see if you kind of zoom in. You have these rotated square designs, as well as, the brick lintels and sills. And I think, you can see next door, it's been stuccoed over, but this one maintains a lot of that brick facade that is really unique and interesting, and very, very distinctive of 1926, 1920s architecture.
I would just add that that's the crenellated parapet.
Crenellated,
This is the
yes.
one thing that
Thank
I do
you.
know, because that's so that archers can duck behind when they're
Exactly.
defending the castle.
Exactly. Yes, that is right. Thank you for that correction.
I would add a comment that the second floor tripartite window, even if the sashes appear to have been replaced, that it maintains the wider central window and the flanking narrower windows, where a lot of times in Jersey City they get ripped out and 3 equal width windows are put in, like the building next door. And that's really remarkable that these mullions are still here almost 100 years later.
Okay, if there are no further questions, again, staff's recommendation is a motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer.
I'll make the motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial.
If you can just elaborate what criteria you're relying on to make that motion, please.
Certainly. So looking at the criteria, the age of the building, the distinctive characteristics and style of architecture, it maintains integrity of location, design, materials, workmanship, and feeling.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Citing the, citing integrity of location, design, materials, workmanship, and feeling.
Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Stankamp,
I'll vote aye.
Commissioner Gunther,
Aye.
Commissioner Gordon,
Aye.
Commissioner Edgecombe,
Aye.
Commissioner Kralbach,
Aye.
Vice Chair Garriga.
Before I give my vote, I just want to state real fast. Well, I do admire the competitive nature of what you had mentioned. There's not another school around for blocks, that type of deal. I completely understand that, and I appreciate that. However, due to the integrity and just as Michael has pointed out, certain key elements of the building, I'm inclined to side with my colleagues on the board and vote aye.
And Chair Cronin.
No.
Would you like to?
I thought he made his case.
Okay. So we have 6 in favor, 1 against, no abstentions. The motion to prepare a resolution recommending denial of the demolition application to the zoning officer is approved. Okay.
Our next item.
So I think that is all,
That is all.
everything. Yeah, that last application has been carried. So we have made it through all of the applications. Some updates on tabled cases. I still haven't heard from 172 Belmont. That one Dan is working on. Haven't heard anything. 24 Bright Street. We heard a little bit of their presentation. They are working on changing some things and are planning on being here in the August 18th meeting. Again, 300 Central Ave has carried. I have not heard from 384 Communipaw. If I do, I will let everyone know. We do not need to introduce any resolutions. We don't have any resolutions to memorialize. We do not need an executive session, which just leaves adjournment. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? It
Aye.
is
Aye.
9:55 p.m. Okay. Thank you.